Call the city for the city of Yamhill to order Wednesday, June 10th, 2026 at 6:31 p.m. We get a roll call, please.
Kent here.
Esky here.
Karen here.
Corrigan here.
And I have Councilor Featherston online.
Fantastic. We are all here. Let's rise for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So getting right to it, do we have any agenda updates or additions tonight?
The only change that I have is I'm going to announce in the end that we are rescheduling the council meeting. So I left a blank there and that will be filled in.
Fantastic. Do we have AKS online for their presentation on the Parks Master Plan?
I do. If you just give me a moment, I will move them over to.
For sure.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Kirsty, you on?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
I need sharing turned on, please.
Okay.
Well, while she's doing that, I'll take a minute to thank everybody for making time for us. I'm Zach Pelz. I'm a land use planner here at AKS. I've met some of you, not all of you. Thanks for making time. I think we're going to take about 20 minutes to walk through this. May take a little more depending on how many questions you have. I'm joined by Kirsty Hauswald tonight. Kirsty is our landscape architecture lead and works on a lot of these parks master plans here at AKS. We're really thrilled to be here tonight talking with you about this. I think one of the main points I want to make off the bat is that this is a draft tonight. So we've spent the last year or so developing a 20-year plan for your parks, trails, and natural areas. You are seeing it for the first time. You got a copy of it either late last week or early this week of the complete draft plan to review, and you can see the elements in there. There's a lot of stuff in there. It kind of covers all the bases, the background, what context we use to develop the plan, all the way through an implementation plan. But what we'd like to do tonight is really get your feedback on, I guess, what we got right, what we missed, push back, tell us what we need to change so that we can make those changes to the plan and then present that final draft to you at your meeting next month. So that's the whole point. So I guess make sure if you're not clear on anything to ask questions, and we'll do our best to try to answer them as we go through this. So what we want to cover tonight are really 5 key areas. So how we develop the plan, what's the policy foundation and the process we use to develop this plan. Second, we want to let you know about what the community told us, what we understand are the needs of the community, what the priorities are, some of the survey highlights. We're gonna talk about what we found. We're gonna talk about some of the existing conditions at all 3 parks. We took some time to evaluate the condition of the parks, the functionality of the parks, and the accessibility of the parks. We're going to talk with you about that, and then we're going to talk kind of globally about the full scope of recommendations for those parks. Kind of if there were no financial constraints on the city, the complete list of recommendations that we have developed for each of the city's parks, and then kind of conclude with an implementation plan. So how do you pay for these improvements, and how should we go about scheduling each of the improvements in a phased way that makes sense with the city's financial reality. So Kirsty's going to cover the detailed park by park findings and some of the specific park recommendations. I'll bookend our presentation. I'm going to talk about kind of the summary of the recommendations up front and close with our implementation plan and next steps. Like I said, we budgeted about 20 minutes for the presentation, and then we'd love to open it up to your questions and then a discussion. If you have questions along the way, don't hesitate to jump in and ask them. Um, just speak up because I can't see all of you in the screen. So if you want to just stop me, just speak up and ask your question. That's absolutely fine. Right, next slide, please, Kirsty.
Oops, I think I skipped. No, there we go.
So I guess first of all, how do we build a plan? There's really three key parts. Think of it as a three-legged stool. First, we reviewed the existing policies and your existing plans. We looked at the comprehensive plan from 2000. We looked at the 2004 Parks Master Plan. We looked at the transportation system plan, the municipal code. We even reviewed some of the planning session notes from a recent 2024 City Council strategic planning session to inform what we're doing here, as there were some relevant parks related topics that were discussed at that planning session. And importantly, we looked at the city's budget. We also looked at the state's comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. It's called SCORP for short, and you see that term used throughout the plan. And that's important because that's where a lot of the funding that the city will rely on for some of these park improvements will come from. Um, so the more aligned we can be with the priorities and the values that are expressed in the state's SCORP plan, the more likely it is that the city will get money for those projects. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Second, we went to the public. We had a online open house as well as some printed community surveys. I'm sorry, an online survey and some printed surveys that ran for about a month from December 5th, 2025 to January 5th, 2026. And we got a really great turnout. We got 91 responses, and really for a city of Yamhill's size, that's a really fantastic and impressive response rate. And so we're really pleased with that. You should all be very proud of your real active citizenry. We think that says a lot about the interest in this topic in the city. Along the way, we also met with City Council and Planning Commission and got their feedback. So the third piece of that is some of the existing conditions analysis. So we got our boots dirty. We looked at the physical conditions, the functionality, the accessibility of all the amenities in all three city parks: Beulah Park, Jane Heinrich Park, Jonathan Calhoun Memorial Park. And from all of that, we developed, in what you see in the plan that's in front of you, park-specific recommendations with planning level cost estimates, a strategy to fund those improvements, and then a phasing plan that kind of builds out this 20-year implementation timeline. Next slide, please, Kirsty. So part of that three-legged stool is the plan and policy review. And won't spend a ton of time talking about this, but this is important because it really provides the context for how we move forward. And it's important to know what the city's priorities were in recent adopted documents like the transportation system plan, the municipal code, et cetera, as well as other agency priorities like the state. And that really, like I mentioned before, it's good to understand where the city's been. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's where it has to go in the future, but it helps us understand how the city has historically invested in parks and why, and if there are changes from that, it helps inform why those changes are desired. Starting with the comp plan, the comp plan's relatively old. It was last updated in 2000, but it still provides goals that are relevant today. One of the recommendations that we have on the policy side of things is that the city update the comp plan to speak more, contemporarily about kind of the whole range of issues that the city is experiencing now and I guess for the next 20 to 30 years in the future. The 2004 Parks Master Plan is really prescient. It projected that the population would reach about 1158 by 2024, and we're just about that now. So they really got close to nailing it. It recommends a lot of the same things that we're recommending today, some of the things that we're not, including things like a park classification system, a park's level of service standards, specific improvements to Beulah Park, Jane Heinrich Park, a trail loop. Some of those same things, like I said, we've recommended here, some of those that we are not currently recommending. Regarding the transportation system plan, that's another plan that's also aging. That plan was last adopted in 2016. Really, I guess just wanted to bring this up because the transportation system plan matters for parks primarily because of the lack of sidewalks and safe pedestrian crossings in certain locations around town really limit how people get to the parks. So you'll see recommendations about some, otherwise maybe more transportation oriented improvements that relate to parks in the recommendations as well. Recommendations from the 2024 strategic planning priorities talk about sports parks, bikes, trails, a dog park, playground equipment, a lot of those things that we're talking about in this plan. And you'll see those priorities woven throughout our recommendations. And finally, like I mentioned before, we really worked hard to align the recommendations in this plan with Oregon's statewide comprehensive plan. And again, that's the document that really drives grant making decisions. So if you want grant money, which you likely do, your projects need to align with SCORP priorities. And again, we tried hard to make sure that they do. Next slide, please, Kirsty. So we're going to talk next about what we heard from the community. And really, this is the heart of the plan because we can do all the technical analysis that we want, but at the end of the day, these are your parks, and the community's voice really needs to drive the priorities. And that's why it's really important that we understand from you, where some of these recommendations are falling flat and how we need to make revisions to those. So again, be sure to speak up if we've missed the mark on any of these things. But I'm going to hand it over to Kirsty now to walk you through the survey results and the park by park conditions assessment, and then I'll pick back up once we get to the summary of recommendations.
Thanks, Zach. I won't go into too much detail because I know that we've already, presented this information to you, but just to give you kind of high level snapshot to refresh our memory, that real big push with the survey, public survey was end of the year. Was open for a month. There were online and print versions available, and we had a fantastic response. Over 91 people responded to that survey. The vast majority of them were Yamhill City residents, and then a slightly smaller percentage were still within the local zip code there. We had very clear direction from the community that they wanted to focus future funding and planning efforts on maintaining and improving existing parks and infrastructure. Some of the high-level priorities included trails and a community center, splash pad, restrooms, playground upgrades, and a desire for improved awareness of the events and recreational activities that were happening. And then I'll go into how we looked at each park and their analysis process for that. As Zach mentioned, we looked at the physical condition, the functionality, and the accessibility of each of the amenities in the park. And we gave that an individual score from 1 being optimum to 5 being unsatisfactory. And then we totaled that for an overall conditions rating. And the facilities that had an overall score of 10 or higher was kind of the tipping point for recommending it as a priority upgrade or replacement. But obviously that needs to be considered within the overall context of your funding opportunities and public safety and community priorities. And so there's more detail for each of those park specific recommendations starting on page 23 of that master plan document that you have. But I will hit the high level for each of the parks. So Beulah Park, primary users within walking distance. The playground is the most popular amenity from the survey. Average user satisfaction from that survey is right in the middle, which is fantastic. And we gave it a condition scorecard right in the middle as well. Some of the barriers that were identified in that outreach survey were some of the aging equipment and facilities and accessibility issues, and then updating the playground, reconstructing some sort of community center, and providing more activities and gathering spaces were top priorities. For Jane Heinrich, the primary user drives for more than a mile. Walking and specifically walking dogs were mentioned as popular uses, and the nature viewing. Again, this kind of falls right in the middle of the user satisfaction rating from that survey, but it fell a little bit lower on the conditions scorecard, primarily because of the accessibility rating there. Some of the barriers identified were a lack of awareness of the park and what was in it, as well as the identity of the park and what its primary functions are. Accessibility, as I mentioned, unclear rules for dog use, and no restrooms or unclear vehicle access and entry points. Some of the top needs identified were athletic facilities, dog amenities, trail resurfacing, and then a restroom. And then finally here, Jonathan Calhoun Park. Again, this is a pocket park. So as expected, the primary user walks within a few blocks of the park. It rated pretty highly with satisfaction rating from that outreach. And then because it is a newer park, it scored pretty high on the condition scorecard as well. Some of the barriers are lack of awareness and limited shade, and a preference for other larger parks that have more amenities. The top needs are accessibility upgrades, both to the playground and some of the supporting site furnishings, providing more shade so it's more comfortable to use, and then opportunity for maybe including some signage and wayfinding to make it more clear that it connects to the school trail system. I think that's you, Zach.
All right, that's me. Thanks, Kirsty. So you've seen the data, you've seen the kind of quick overview of the conditions assessment, the survey feedback, what's working, what's not. I guess I want to just kind of quickly present the summary of our recommendations and kind of organize them into three buckets. One being policy actions, two being the system-wide standards, which is really just the level of service standards, and then a third bucket is the park specific improvements. And I'll start with the policy actions. Those are really the kind of the lower cost, high impact items, things that the city can do with staff time and political will, and that are also necessary just to help kind of streamline the capital improvements when it comes time to do those. And so those are things like updating the park ordinance. The current ordinance is functional, but it's thin. It needs to address things like dog policies, which like Kirsty just mentioned, it's a real source of confusion at Jane Heinrich Park. People literally don't know if their dog can be off leash or not. So that's an easy fixable problem, and that's a policy action that we're recommending. One of the things we're also recommending is that the city should develop a vegetation management plan for the ongoing care of trees and natural areas. That's another relatively low-hanging item that the city can address through policy actions. A third policy action is that we're recommending that the school pursue a memorandum of understanding with the school district for shared use of the school district's recreational facilities and also for some of the joint management of the natural area that's located east of the school campus. And so the school campus is about 40 acres. There's obviously all kinds of fields that the school uses for its events and sporting activities. There's an opportunity for the city to partner with the school district on some sort of shared use there, and so that's a policy recommendation that we've included in the plan as well. Another policy action has to do with cost sharing for sports fields. So if the city does at some point in the future develop athletic fields, booster organizations or tournament operators should be responsible for sharing in the maintenance costs In our opinion, it's not fair to saddle the general fund with $15,000 to $25,000 a year in field maintenance when there are outside entities that are using those for profit. Um, and finally, one kind of easy policy action the city can make is to update the city's website with parks information. You heard also from Kirsty that, in certain instances, people don't know where these parks are. And that was especially relevant for John Calhoun Memorial Park and Jane Heinrich Park. So providing information on the city's website with regard to the location, what amenities are there, what are the hours, what other accessibility features and amenities exist. That's all kind of easy, low-hanging fruit that the city can pick to help folks better understand where the parks are and how they can use them. The second thing is a park classification level of service. And again, that was something that came up in the prior Parks Master Plan, but wasn't actually ever adopted. And so we're recommending the adoption of a standard park classification system. You heard Kirsty mention the term pocket park. There's kind of this spectrum of parks classification um, descriptions, I guess, pocket park, neighborhood park, community park, and that really helps describe how those parks are used and maintained, but also um, helps the city kind of prioritize where those parks should be located in relation to various demographic groups and other needs. So establishing service standards like that, for example, that every resident should be within a quarter mile of a neighborhood park, things like that, with good ped connections and good bicycle connections. Those are kind of the thoughts behind developing a level of service standard for the city's parks. Finally, you saw with regard to park specific improvements, you saw the kind of the detailed list of projects, and Kirsty's going to spend a little bit more time talking about them. But at a high level, at Beulah Park, we're recommending replacing the playground with an inclusive ADA compliant design, removing the bingo hall, which I know might sting a little bit for some folks, but some of those structures, as we'll talk about, scored really lowly. I mean, the Bingo Hall, I think, scored 5 out of 5 on the unsatisfactory scale. And so, um, long-term things like that need to be replaced. We're recommending a combined community building in that instance with a covered patio to replace it. Other things like resurfacing the skate park, improving trails, etc. Recommendations at Jane Heinrich Park. We think this park really has enormous potential. It's 44 acres. It's in our opinion, it's pretty underutilized. The top priorities that we heard from residents are restrooms. There are none. Making some park improvements, improving wayfinding, fencing the public works yard so visitors, excuse me, aren't greeted by a maintenance facility. I think those types of things will go a long way. And improving some of the existing riparian vegetation along Amhill Creek in that area because it's used pretty widely as a walking area and nature park. And at John Calhoun Memorial Park, this park is small, but it's important. And some of the recommendations we heard also are pretty low cost improvements to make specifically planting shade trees where there currently are none. So things like that the city can do pretty quickly and easily to rectify some of the reasons that people brought up for why they don't use the park. Also things like adding an ADA ramp to the playground to improve accessibility, and then finally adding signage or improving the signage so that people know it's there. Really, across all three parks, the themes are pretty consistent. Accessibility, awareness, and incremental improvement of what you already have. And I'll hand it back to Kirsty, I guess, to go into some more detailed recommendations that we've got here.
Sounds good. All right, for Beulah Park, we have a list of 10 projects. These aren't in necessarily specific order of, recommended timeline or anything like that. And they kind of vary from simple, easy to implement projects like installing some soft surface trail connections in areas where people are already kind of creating their own trails. to really big projects like replacing the playground and building a community building. I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of those areas here. So some of the highlights from this plan, again, removing the existing bingo hall and the vendor building and placing a larger community building in the current basketball court area. That's this building 4 and 5. The idea behind this would be that it would serve as a multi-purpose building. What we have shown here is currently large enough to have an indoor basketball court if you wanted to, with a few other smaller like meeting rooms or office spaces off of the side of that. Number 5 here would be an indoor-outdoor space with a covered patio. And the idea behind that is that you would have one building that would replace both the current bingo hall and the vendor area and be able to host those events in a kind of sustainable way. It also creates more usable lawn area, which Beulah Park does not have a lot of that. And it makes room for a more accessible playground with like a unitary accessible surfacing and a variety of playground equipment and seating opportunities. We're also recommending some pedestrian improvements, including a connection out to the intersection of Hemlock and 3rd to connect to any future sidewalks or pedestrian improvements that happen along 3rd. We're protecting the existing oak grove to the greatest extent practical. We're also recommending resurfacing the existing skate park, which is item number 12 there, and adding a half-court basketball court in the area where the existing horseshoe pits are. I recommend taking those out and replacing that. So there still is an opportunity to play basketball in the park. Some of the other improvements include formalizing some more parking, and then not shown here directly, but I do think that there is an opportunity if land to the east becomes, to the west becomes available to purchase in the future, that would provide an opportunity to expand both the parking capacity and possibly add other amenities to this park. All right. I'll jump to Jane Henrik Park here. There's a total of 6 projects that 12 projects that we're recommending, 6 on here and several on this page. They're really centered on providing accessibility and visibility, and that includes adding some signage, consolidating, and clearly marking the vehicular access points. Right now there's kind of 2. One of them kind of meanders through the public works yard, which is a little confusing. And then improving the trail surfacing. And then also providing sports and community use amenities. So that would be a restroom, a covered picnic shelter that could host events or be rented out, and enhancing the on-site parking to better serve the sports fields and the community gatherings. So here's a plan of what that might look like. Again, keeping this parking area here off of Maple as kind of a trailhead parking, but enclosing that public works yard, and then directing the main traffic through 3rd Street in that entrance here with some directional, like larger format and directional signage that formalizing and expanding the parking area so that it has the capacity to better serve some of these community events and the existing practice fields that are out there. Keeping the RC track, I know that's something people enjoy and use, and adding some additional amenities to kind of support that, maybe like a small viewing platform, some additional picnic tables and things like that. Kind of central to these amenities would be a large picnic shelter and a restroom facility with kind of a plaza area for kind of the indoor-outdoor feel. And then creating a dedicated space with power hookups so that you could host vendors or other food carts or anything during a community event. I think that could also potentially bring in some revenue to the city. And then our other improvements are just kind of updating what is already out there, adding additional signage and dog waste bags because this is used as a dog friendly park. So clarifying the rules for that and providing better amenities for that, additional benches and picnic tables along this kind of creekside trail, and kind of consolidating and making the stormwater facility more of an amenity with what I'm calling a storyteller's loop trail that kind of takes some of the existing signage that you have for the Beverly Clearly story and incorporating it into that area to make it a more of a highlighted feature. All right, Jonathan Calhoun Park. There's 5 projects we're recommending here. These are more simple because the user satisfaction rating was pretty high. Those proposed amenities, again, are just adding more shade, specifically on the west and south sides of the playground, making some simple improvements and relocation of some of the site furnishings to make them ADA accessible. So that would include my item number 2 here, relocating that existing trash receptacle into its own location, and that would open up a ADA companion spot next to that bench. Same thing with one of the picnic tables, creating an accessible route to that and replacing that bench with an accessible picnic table. And then probably one of the more important recommendations would be to provide an ADA accessible ramp into the playground so that that remains accessible. Since it's soft surface wood chips, those tend to recede as it gets used and as they wear, and oftentimes you get large step between the path and the surfacing in the playground. And then finally, just some simple signage and interpretive signage and wayfinding signage that can enhance this trail connection to the high school. I'll turn it over to you, Zach.
Thank you. Okay, so this is really where the rubber meets the road. This is the implementation plan. This is the part where we have to be realistic, I guess, about the city's financial realities relative to what everybody wants for parks improvements and maintenance improvements and et cetera. And so I guess, yeah, again, it's really the benefit of doing a master plan, right? It's the reason the city is able to kind of manage and budget for improvements over the next 20 years is because we're going to be realistic about the finances. So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. Starting with the annual parks maintenance budget. So this fiscal year, the annual parks maintenance budget is just under $43,000, and that covers personnel, and it covers materials, and it covers basic upkeep for all 3 of the existing parks. And really, it's tight. It does the job, but it really can't absorb significant new maintenance obligations in future years without additional revenues. And so one of the things we heard from residents is complementary to that, in that, they don't want new parks, they don't want a lot of new amenities. They want the city to prioritize improving the existing parks and maintaining the existing parks. So those things are in alignment, and that's really a big portion of how we've structured our recommendations to really, I guess, acknowledge the city's parks maintenance budget. Beyond that, though, and the good news is that the city has a pretty sizable reserve of parks system development monies, just over $500,000, $572,000 in parks SDCs currently. that can be used for future capital improvements. Um, I do want to point out that though SDC funds can only be spent on growth related capital improvements. So if you add facilities to parks, if you purchase land for a new park, it can be used for park planning purposes, but it can't be used for maintenance. Only growth related improvements. So the way we've structured the implementation plan, we, I guess, exploit that existing SDC reserve in the first tier of projects um, to move to, I guess, to advance a project at Beulah Park and to potentially serve as a match for potential grant funds that the city could get through other state or federal sources of funds. But it's a good pile of money to have to take on projects immediately and to match grant funds. And so that's how we're recommending that that be used. Another source of funding that the city has already budgeted is $100,000 for ADA improvements to the Beulah Park playground. And again, that aligns with some of our near-term recommendations. Regarding the overall funding strategy, we are recommending a diversified approach, which is typically how cities would approach these things. Parks STC funds, we mentioned, that it's likely that under a conservative scenario, the city can expect 5 to 10 new homes constructed per year that will contribute funds to the city's parks SDC coffers that, again, they can use for future growth related capital projects. That's one source of funding. Oregon Parks and Recreation, SCORP aligned state grants, which I've also mentioned. There's a big chunk of money available through those grants that the city can take advantage of in future years to prioritize accessibility, things like restrooms, trails, clean facilities, and our recommendations hit at those things. Um, there are federal grants available, Land and Water Conservation Fund, Community Development Block Grants for ADA improvements, et cetera, things like that the city can rely on. We're recommending that the city look at booster organizations to help with cost sharing for sports facilities if those are desired in the future. Um, the city's municipal code already allows special assessments for parks, and so that's something that the city could look into more closely as it looks to make improvements to parks. Volunteers are a great resource for things like tree planting, invasive species removal, trail maintenance, and other things like that. The city can rely on to help move the needle on some of these projects and policy recommendations. And then, like I mentioned before, partnerships with the school district for shared facilities. And so, with the combination of those things, there's a lot of money and other related resources that the city can turn to move forward with the implementation plan that we've lined out here. So, I mean, I guess the big point is that there's really no one single source of funding that's going to get you all the way there, but taken together, we think that this combination of strategies really helps make the plan financially achievable. Next slide, please, Kirsty. So Kirsty showed you those slides for each of the three parks, and that again, that's the full universe of improvements that we're recommending. But again, financial realities make it such that the city won't be able to achieve all of those things. And so, what we have developed as part of this implementation plan is a near-term, mid-term, and long-term set of recommendations that really get at kind of some of those highest priority items that showed up on the conditions assessment, combined with some of the higher priority things that we heard from folks in the feedback to the survey. So taking those things together helped us put together the set of recommendations. And I guess the third piece of that are the financial realities. So there's three pieces to, or I guess there's three sources of information that informed our recommendations. It's the survey feedback, it's the conditions assessment and the city's existing financial realities that really shaped how we prepared these recommendations. So the near-term projects, we've got just under $1 million worth of projects within the first 3 years of the plan's lifespan. So these are really the quick wins plus the critical fixes. So these are low-hanging fruit plus things that we can get to right away. So every project here was selected because it addresses an urgent conditions assessment deficiency. Like I said, it responds to a top community priority or it does both. The headliners here are really adding that inclusive playground at Beulah Park. That's a big ticket item. That's about $750,000 based on our estimates, so $745,000. This is really the biggest single near-term investment, but it's really also the number one community priority at Beulah Park. 63% of respondents asked for that specific improvement. And it really addresses the worst accessibility score in the system. So you've already got $100,000 budgeted for an improvement at that park. You've got some SDC funds available, and with some additional funds through an OPRD grant, that can get that project all the way there. And so that's the big ticket item that we're recommending in the first tier of projects. Other projects in that near term include ADA ramp and shade trees at Calhoun Park. That's about a $20,000 project combined. So that's really a relatively small project with a big impact. We're also recommending that the city move forward with the skate park resurfacing. In this near-term list of projects, the skate community is really passionate and vocal. This is a good faith investment in that direction, really something that we see being kind of a good investment for the long-term usability of the park. We're also recommending right away the removal of the bingo hall and vendor food buildings at Beulah Park. It's about $30,000 in our estimate. I know these buildings have a lot of history, but they really scored poorly on the physical condition, and we think getting to the point where they're a safety concern for the city. So in this
And
near,
along, oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead,
I
Christy.
was going to say also removing them also takes away the maintenance obligation of trying to prop up a failing structure. So that
Yep,
is
yep,
has financial benefits as well.
yep, yep, that's right. So really, we've got a combination of policy actions, or I guess beyond those specific recommendations, we're recommending also some policy actions, like I mentioned before, the park ordinance, website updates, and again, those are staff time, not necessarily capital expenditures on parks, but that's the combination of near-term actions. Once we get through this phase, so again, we've got just under $600,000 in parks SDCs right now. We would expect to spend all of that in that first 3 years on those capital improvements, which means that your SDC reserve in the second term, that midterm list of projects is about depleted. We think you'll have somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in new SDC parks SDCs given the likelihood that you'll have new home construction happen in that time, and will help kind of replenish in a little way what the projects are. But really, the second set of projects is going to rely on grant funding, and so these are projects that we're trying to set up and give the city a little bit of time to prep for grant opportunities as they come along. So projects in the second phase include restrooms at Jane Henrik Park. That's about a $400,000 improvement. This was really, I think, the top write-in request. There's no restrooms at the park. A lot of people expressed a real desire for that type of improvement. I think that's something the city has been aware of for a while. We're also recommending in the second term a parking expansion, and that's a pretty big ticket item as well, about $400,000 for parking lot improvement. The parking scored really low at Jane Heinrich Park, that really lowest of any of the city's parks. That's why we included it there. We're recommending that the city improve sidewalk and trail connections, like I mentioned before, connecting the park to the street network. That's a transportation issue. People need to be able to safely get to parks. Riparian restoration along Yamhill Creek, again, to kind of promote the nature area along Jane Heinrich Park. It's a relatively big ticket item as well, about $90,000 is what we're estimating, but there are state grant funds and volunteer support that can help advance that improvement. And then finally, as Kirsty mentioned, wayfinding signage throughout the system. So not just at Jane Heinrich, but at John Calhoun Park, to really help people understand that these parks are there for their use. The restroom and parking projects at Jane Heinrich are good candidates for OPRD's, Oregon Park and Recreation Department's local government grant funds. We estimate that a successful grant application could probably cover about half of the total of those project costs. And so, again, trying to align the second tier of projects closely with statewide grant opportunities and grant priorities so that the city can kind of get the most out of this plan with the limited resources that are available. One thing that's important to point out, I did mention kind of the city's limited budget for parks maintenance, but as the city adds amenities to the parks over time, the maintenance budget will grow. And so we've made a deliberate effort to acknowledge that in the plan as well, so that, it's not just a matter of adding new amenities and the one-time cost of building those things, right? It's the long-term cost of also maintaining each of those things. So just keep in mind that as these new amenities come online, so do new maintenance obligations. And we've noted that in the plan, and we have a separate table that kind of tries to estimate what the cumulative additional maintenance responsibility for the city will be as these additional tiers or subsequent tiers of projects come online. But that's an important thing not to lose sight of, so the city can appropriately budget for appropriate and adequate parks maintenance. Finally, the long-term list of projects. So these are projects. Actually, no, we've got the plan, I think, has a longer term list that includes kind of a smaller dollar figure, but just we'll conclude our presentation with these 5 to 10 year, and then the longer term projects are 10 plus years. And those 10 plus year projects tend to be things that we couldn't really put a price tag on. So I think we're just going to stop this presentation with the longer term project. But these are things like the Beulah Park land expansion. Kirsty mentioned that, for the sake of expanding park amenities and parking, that the city may look to acquire some additional land to the west of Beulah Park. That would be a long-term recommendation. Kirsty also mentioned in her plan for Beulah Park that a combined community building was another recommendation. That's I think the single biggest ticket item in this list. We think that's about a $1.75 million improvement that would replace the bingo hall with a real community facility, including potentially an indoor sports court, a covered patio that can be used by vendors at events and et cetera. So a real improvement on the existing facility there that would really be a long-term asset for the community and really serve a lot of different needs. Covered picnic shelter and event infrastructure at Jane Heinrich Park is another longer-term recommendation that really helps create new spaces for folks to gather, opportunities for the city to gain some revenue back through rentals or things like that. That's one of the long-term recommendations. And then trail resurfacing and park-to-park connections is another thing that showed up, and that's something we know. So connections between Jane Heinrich Park and Beulah Park. That's something that has shown up in previous plans. We don't have a real specific recommendation for what that improvement is. That's kind of an area for future study, given the crossing of the highway and all the complications that go on with that. But that's just something that we noted to keep in mind there. So all of these projects are going to require external funding, bonds, grants, ODOT partnership for highway crossings. And we think this plan helps lay the groundwork to help the city move the needle there. So the total 20-year investments in our estimation is somewhere between 5.2 and $5.5 million. And that, again, that includes trails and natural areas that are really scope dependent and some of those longer term things that we couldn't really put a price tag on. In addition to that, the annual maintenance budget grows from about $43,000 today to, upwards of $160,000 annually at full build out. That's still pretty modest for a complete park system, but it's a big increase from what the city is budgeting for parks maintenance today. So again, that's an important thing not to lose of. Um, so I think that's really the plan in a nutshell. Uh, I guess I want to leave you with just a couple quick takeaways. Again, this plan is really built on what your community told us. 78% of your residents told us that they valued improving what the city has before the city moves to build anything new, and we think this plan really addresses that. Second, every recommendation in the plan is tied to a conditions assessment finding, a community priority, or alignment with the state comprehensive and recreational plan. And usually all three, and that's not by accident. It's how you win grants. So it's deliberate. Third, the phasing is really designed to match your financial capacity. We front loaded the projects you can fund now with existing SDC reserves and budgeted monies. And we tried to sequence some of the larger investments to follow grant applications and revenue growth, like I mentioned previously. Again, this is a draft. We want your input. Do we have the priorities right? Is the phasing realistic? Are there projects that you'd like to accelerate or defer? So let us know. This is your plan. We put it on paper. We know you're just seeing it now for the first time. And so with all that said, we'd love to hear from you. What questions do you have? Again, thanks for your time and listening to us go through this tonight. And so we're all ears. Let us know what questions you've got.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Counselor Ken, did you have any questions or comments for
good.
them?
I'm good, thanks.
All right. Mr. Askey?
No, not right now. I
Not
don't
now?
think.
Oh, I know you.
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay.
I have a whole lot of questions, but I think they need to be discussed before they're addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
And then
Yeah.
online.
I guess with that comment, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor. I guess if there are, if there are questions that come up after you've had a little more time to digest, please reach out to us via staff, and we're happy to meet with you if you want to discuss some stuff, or if you want to send us an email, we're happy to respond that way. Yeah, there's a lot here. I know you haven't had a whole lot of time to digest what's in the plan, and if it makes more sense to go on a little bit and then get back to us, we're open to that.
Great. And so you wanted to wait for a bit.
Definitely.
Okay. Just a couple things that I have that I'd love to see added into this if possible. The city does have several what we call paper streets. So streets that could have been paved at one point, never have been. Might be kind of neat to kind of have parks take care of that, little trails for kids to ride bikes sort of thing through it with maybe some tree planting. Along with the tree planting, we are working with ODOT and a TSP right now. One of the things that we're going to be looking at is the potential for urban forestry and some street trees downtown. That might be nice to have under the Parks Department or the Public Works and their parks budget. And then finally, we do have a vacant lot that's owned by the county currently, right next door to City Hall. It's been mentioned several times about the possibility of a MOU or a GA with the county to have that become a Veterans Memorial Park downtown. So those are things that I wouldn't mind seeing added.
I've got those added to my notes here. I'll follow up with you, Mr. Mayor, if I have any other questions with regard to like specific amenities or anything like that. But we'll add those to the list. And
then just on a time-saving aspect, I think for the city park, we do have an ordinance that all dogs must be on a leash in all parks.
already established and on the books. And Jane Heinrich Park, again, I see it's great because you're adjusting the entrance to Public Works and the entrance to the park. Because if you park actually where the park begins, there are 2 signs, maybe 3, that say all dogs must be on leash. But very few people, I think, enter the park that way.
Gotcha.
So some of those
Sure.
littler things there, I think we can clear up quickly.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Great feedback.
Thank you.
One of the things that Zach and I had talked about, because I know that that community building is a big need, but also a very big expense. And, I think there's ways to scale that. We've kind of shown an optimal thing, it's large, it provides a lot of flexibility. But there is kind of that mid step of maybe that is a little bit smaller, so it still can serve as like a rental hall, or possibly opportunities in another location to combine that with another building like the library. I know that has been mentioned as a need. So that's also something to consider.
And maybe just for the purpose of future grant writing, that building at Beulah Park could maybe be listed as a potential emergency operations center.
If we go on.
Once it's demolished and rebuilt. Yeah, no, no.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
What else? Any other immediate feedback? Like I said, if you don't have specific changes to suggest now, but after having a chance to digest some of this, don't hesitate to reach out.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that opportunity as well, so. Yes. Okay, AKS, is that conclude for you folks tonight?
That's it. Like I said, I guess the last thing I'll say is if you do have comments to get to us, we're going to try to be back in front of you in July with revisions that are based on your feedback. So the sooner you can get those to us, the better, especially if they're kind of complicated or require, more research and discussion. So we'll see you again in July. And thanks again for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And just for your notes, quickly, our July meeting looks like it will be moving to July 15th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, folks.
All right. Bye.
Anybody have any discussion on the presentation?
It's good.
I think it's great.
Did you all read it?
96 pages.
You did?
I'm not gonna say I read it every single page in great detail, but I did go through the entire thing. I attempt to get through all of it.
Yeah, no, I read through a little more than half of it, and I have some real concerns with some of what their design plan and additions are to especially Beulah Park.
Now, remember, it's a guideline
Yeah, I
for
know
the
it is.
intention to write a grant, so it's not a cast in
I
stone, but
know.
we should discuss it.
Yeah, I would like to discuss it a
Cool.
little more, not necessarily right now, but
Maybe at our meeting next
yeah,
week.
yeah.
All right. Well, if that's the case, we'll move on to our next item, which is marked as ordinances, and we have none. Which is moving forward. So now we will actually start the public comment section. So that's a little later than normal with the presentation. Yan Hill encourages all citizens to comment on any city business. This is not a dialogue platform. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. And if you require special accommodation or additional time in the future, please call City Hall at least 1 week in advance of the meeting. I have Mr. Robert Davis. You would like to speak? It says you would.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and all residents. I'm going to read from a prepared statement tonight. For the record, my name is Robert Davis. I live at 212 North Maple Street. I'd like to speak about water conservation, drought preparedness, and public awareness. I appreciate work the city performs every day to provide safe, reliable water service. Maintaining a municipal water system requires significant planning, investment, infrastructure, management, and long-term forecasting. I recognize those responsibilities and appreciate the city's ongoing efforts. Tonight, I'm not here to advocate for new regulations or restrictions. I'm here to encourage a proactive discussion about water conservation, drought preparedness, and public awareness. The drought year experienced by the city of Yamhill was in 2021. Across Oregon, communities are facing increased pressure on water resources due to public pollution growth, seasonal demand, and changing weather patterns. While Yamhill has not experienced the severe shortages seen in other regions yet, many communities are recognizing that early planning and public education are far more effective than waiting for a crisis to develop. One recent example comes from the city of Carlton. Carlton distributed approximately 650 water conservation door hangers to residents as part of a voluntary public education effort. What makes that program noteworthy is that it's implemented before emergency restrictions became necessary. The city's objective was simple: educate residents, encourage responsible water usage, and reduce unnecessary demand during the summer season. I'm not suggesting that Yamhill duplicate Carlton's approach. Every community has its needs and priorities. However, Carlton demonstrates that relatively low-cost public outreach can help build awareness and support responsible stewardship of local water resources. As the founder of Yamhill Neighborhood Association, a 501c3 organization, I'm interested in understanding the city's current planning efforts and identifying opportunities where community and organizations may assist in public education and outreach. Specifically, I have had time to not look for the city's document on water management on the city's website, but I've been told it's there. Questions I would be looking for in this document are how the city evaluates long-term water supply reliability, how the city prepares for drought conditions and periods of peak summer demand, what conversations, measures, and currently promotes to residents, and is there opportunities for public participation in future planning efforts? Ultimately, this decision is good stewardship. So today I'm reaching out to all Yamhill City residents, nonprofits, community-based organizations to ask anyone who has lived in Yamhill with the level 3 water emergency issue and any new Yamhill residents or other Yamhill residents to attend an open meeting. I will post this meeting location on Facebook and flyers in the city very soon to discuss these water situations. Thank you for your time and consideration for this important water issue.
Thank you, Robert. Robbie Lostley, would you like to speak tonight, sir?
This is a time in history to bring some remembrance. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separated and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient and sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessary which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. Therefore, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And then a footnote that's not part of this has to do with the park and the survey. And if planning and if council has not had an opportunity to review the survey with all of the intents and all of the thoughts that were expressed and anything that your minds can also construe in the analysis thereof, may I recommend to you that you absolutely do that before much of anything takes place. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. Pam Kirsch is here, but has not requested to speak. Do we have anybody on the line that would like to speak this evening?
If anyone online would like to speak, if you could please raise your hand or press *9.
We're waiting for that. Has anybody sent any written correspondence? I'm still waiting for a letter.
I have not received any written.
Boy, I'd sure love one day.
Those girls about the skate park.
It was written, but I wanted to come by mail and be a surprise. And those ladies were wonderful.
No hands are raised.
Okay. With that, we will move along. So we'll start with committee reports. Planning Commission, Angela Fowler will be reporting for them this evening.
So not much happened with the Economic Development Committee. We just,
We're on planning.
planning.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No worries.
With Planning Commission, they looked at, possible downtown design code updates and, the temporary accessory structures code, and are looking at, updating those, but they want to reach out to council before they dive into that, because there are financial aspects with that, to make sure that everybody is on board with them reviewing those codes and looking at possibly updating. And so what they are requesting is for council to I guess direct them if they are wanting to update them.
Fantastic. So what we'll be doing is we'll be looking for a motion to approve and review and possibly update downtown design standards and temporary accessory structure codes at the Planning Commission level.
Those are two different,
Okay. They'll be doing them simultaneously.
but they're two.
Yeah. We'd entertain a motion.
What's the matter with our current temporary?
So right now, our temporary accessory structure code, this is, I believe the RV code. Guest occupancy and or temporary structures on a property. And it. Just from what they were looking at, and I can't get too deeply into it. There were some things that needed clarification. It tends to go from directing you from one portion of the code to another portion of code and then back to the first portion of the code. So it just, for better clarification, it might be something, I don't know when it was last updated, I could pull it up, that they should be looking at. And then Walt, our city planner, was questioning about the temporary accessory structures. His concern being that our code allows for people to get permission to put, say, a temporary mobile home on the property that's not permitted to be there. Permitted to be there except for temporary. And he said that is really expensive to do.
Financially not feasible.
It's really expensive to do, and it's really hard for the city to abate if
Right.
the people don't get rid of it when the time ends for their permit,
You're begging for an existing non-conforming building,
basically.
Yeah.
For
Yes.
6 months.
but it
That's
will
what-
last forever because they won't move it.
Correct. So those
And if we
are,
wanted it there, we would have it in code.
I was
So
surprised.
for all
to hear
those
that.
reasons, and then for a lot of the feedback that came after some recently developed downtown buildings, were designed in a way that was offensive to some, although they followed exact code and criteria. There's been some comment on maybe updating the code and criteria.
So it's more specific.
Yes.
I'll gladly make a motion.
Fantastic.
I make a motion to review and possibly update downtown design code and temporary accessory structures code. May
Second.
I get a second?
I'll second it.
Fantastic. With the second, is there any further discussion that we need to have on it? If none, we'll have a vote.
Kend, I.
SEI.
Karen, I.
Corrigan, aye. Do we have a Featherston hand?
I see a hand for Featherston.
So it is unanimous. We would request that happens as soon as possible. Thank you. Moving on to yet another report from our city recorder for the
I
economic
think I already
development.
gave you this one.
Fantastic.
Not much happened in Economic Development Committee. They discussed trees again, and that's pretty much all. It was a short meeting.
It was a short meeting.
Mhm.
Very. All right, moving along to the city administrator's report. So I think that we had a very exciting phone call today. So a good month. An exciting phone call today with Hillsborough Water in regards to Barney. We are on their agenda for the 18th meeting, the June 18th meeting this month, to put in front of the stakeholders of Barney the possibility of purchasing raw water from them at a sort of usable for the city on a day-to-day basis level, as well as potentially to start out as an emergency water source. So we spoke to their director today, and that will be happening again on the 18th. Met with the Carlton city administrator to discuss Carlton and Yamhill's joint interests, like the graduation parade that will happen next year. We'll have a meeting to discuss what that should look like well in advance of the meeting. And then things like shared water resources, other resources, and strengthening relationships between the two cities. It was a good meeting. We had an exciting FEMA kickoff meeting in Salem with AKS, Jason Wofford, and myself for the $3.4 million reservoir that we'd be putting out on Reservoir Road with matching money from Business Oregon. So that is moving ahead at relatively high speed. Merkley grant, another great grant that's finally coming to be used. So we're studying a pipeline to Barney, Cherry Grove, and Carlton. Potentially some upgrades and additions to that. Again, that's 100% funded by grant money. And could coincide very nicely with an approval from the Barney Reservoir people. Just so everybody's aware, we are in the process of updating everybody's email from .org to .gov. So please be advised if you need to email any of us that .gov is now the way to go, except for I believe counselors have not been updated yet, but is coming very soon. Parks Master Plan, we just finished with that and their presentation, which I think is great. I want to just give sort of a big thank you to our chief and to our Officer Livingston for helping with the grad night water parade. Turns out Yamhill can have a lot of fun. Made requests for some people to kind of keep things sort of, exciting, fun, but safe. And I think everybody did a wonderful job. I didn't get a single complaint except one little tiny, somebody got a little wetter than they wanted to, but they said next year they'll stand elsewhere. So that will be fun. Another thing that I would like to just kind of point out, and we received an email not too long ago that what we say in public meetings is public record. So it's not just the folks in this room. This is recorded. It is on YouTube. Anybody can watch it at later times. What you write on your notes, those are all public record. So those will be kept and maintained. If somebody puts a FOIA request and you have written something interesting about something, we'll know. Please keep that in mind in the public meetings, as well as with our new friend, the Yam Hillbilly. We have avoided sort of his wrath at this point. But so if you're not familiar, the Yam Hillbilly is a fictitious internet person whose identity is yet unknown, who reads about things that happen, hears about things that happen, and makes satirical comments about them. Some cities have received really some blasts about that. We've done quite well, although we've been mentioned. We have not been, although a little dystopia sort of golf cart sign was posted about the potential for Yamhill to ban all golf carts, and we don't have any intention of doing that. That was just satirical and fun, but do be careful because the wrath of the hillbilly could be coming your way.
It's a county hillbilly.
Yes, and Yamhill County Hillbilly. He's looking at all cities and he or she. Well, and that is just it. So there's rumors about everybody that could have been, several people in this room have been mentioned as potential hillbillies. To my knowledge, none of that is true. And some of them, in fact, are female. So be cautious. You know not who the hillbilly is. And that's all I have for my city administrator report today. The financial report, which we received in our packets, I hope everybody had a chance to look over them. I want to give a note that our finance manager said there was nothing extraordinary out of sort of what's commonly found. So let's move along to police department reports. Chief.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
There's some things that I added to the agenda for everyone, including council as well as the public to read. So not that I'm keeping track, but in 8 days, 15 hours, 11 minutes and 16 seconds, Officer Livingston will be graduating from the academy on Friday, June 19th at 11 a.m. All are welcome to attend. It's an open event for the public. Those that can't wish to attend but cannot, there's a link also in the information that's put out in the packet that has, I believe it was YouTube link to be able to watch it live as well. There's no audio, so you can't cheer if you want to. You can, just you won't be heard. As I will be there and I will be heard. I have a couple of times on occasion intentionally went down on certain days to observe as administrator at DPSST while Officer Livingston has been there. I intentionally chose the days I did. One of them would have been the EVO, as they call it, which used to be EBOC, which means you get to drive really fast around the track. That would have just been for fun. I chose not to do that, even though that's an important one. But the ones that I did choose as late of today when I was down there involves a lot of things that officers need to understand the importance of, and I wanted to see what DPSST is teaching as their criteria currently. And that is for today was traffic stops, also for domestic violence scenarios, the use of force, and as well as defensive tactics. I like the criteria that the academy is teaching currently, and it's at the best interest of the officer and keeping the officer safe, keeping the community safe, and also keeping cities to avoid potential liabilities with the criteria that they're teaching. He's doing exceptionally well down there, doing well on all of the quizzes and the mid exam. He has a final exam coming up, and then obviously the graduation. He'll continue after he returns going through the field training evaluation program, which I believe, because he's been here a while, it's still the same process and a requirement from DPSST, but also within our policy that I've had as a requirement for several years. It'll take 6 months to a year to complete the FTEP program, as we call it. And after that, then he will be either signed off or going through remedial training, which I don't anticipate happening. And he'll be working shifts already, but he'll be signed off and working shifts outside of FTEP.
And just to clarify, he will be able to work shifts solo through FTEP on his return.
Yes, I will be with him initially, but yes, he'll be working shifts, but I will be going through the FTEP process, which requires me to hit the minimum job shadow for part of those shifts that he's going to be working.
So is he going to be 5 days a week when he comes back? Is he going to be working full time when he comes back, or is it just X amount of days till he gets through this whole process?
I guess the answer to that is yes to all of it. He'll be working he's a full-time police officer. He'll be working full-time as a police officer, and he'll be working as a school resource officer as well, continuing that.
Okay.
So, yes.
And then a ballpark time frame when he's going to be back to actually start working and all that?
He gave the countdown.
What's that?
I said you gave the countdown.
Well, no, but
That's-
that's when he graduates.
That's the graduation.
Yeah.
And he and I have had that conversation. For security reasons, I don't divulge what our
So, I mean,
what our schedules are. 'Cause
right.
to be honest with you, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you what my schedule's been this week and will continue to be. Having said that, he's like, hey, well, I'll be able to come back to work on this date. And I said, you'll have your 40 hours on Friday when you graduate. So let's focus on DPSST. Let's focus on that. And then, because I've been covering the shifts. So when you come back, then we'll discuss when to start.
so sometime within the next couple of weeks or so.
Already. Yes, absolutely. Within the next week of him graduating, prior to
Okay.
even a week.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have anything else for your report, sir?
I was just really excited about that. So,
I am very excited about that. Yes.
the information for how things have been going with the staff report and the statistics is all in there. And other than that, unless anyone has any questions.
And thank you for that. And thank you for all the extra work that you put through to keep us up and running. Well, he's been receiving his training.
We appreciate it. Couldn't do it alone. Still doing FTEP with Officer McMullen, but
Yeah.
he's here, and as well as again, I have talked with the sheriff's office almost daily, and they've been helping out tremendously. So,
They have, yeah.
yes.
Amazing. So if that's it. If
That is all I have.
If you want to take off, I know you've had a long day already. Or you're welcome to hang out with us for as long as you choose.
I have some stuff I need to work on, and so I don't look rude doing it.
No, absolutely. No, go do your thing if you like.
Oh, can I ask one more quick question?
Yeah.
How's McMullen doing? Is he getting ready to be done with his hourly work with you, or how's he?
Field training evaluation program takes about a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, regardless of the steps, because it's the same steps. And it doesn't matter if it's an employee has been here for 10 years or if it's their first day. Every part of the field training program is gone through. And even though there's not requirements through DPSST, there's requirements by my standards in our policy, even as part-time officers and or reserve officers, they still go through that same field training manual that DPSST requires. So it's a process.
So he's got a ways to go yet.
Yeah, so you have somebody that's a full-time officer that's here 40 hours a week. Then that process, having said that, goes a little faster because they're here for 40 hours a week. Whereas you have a part-time officer that I say has a full-time job and actually can make some money instead of being a cop. Then they might be a weekend here instead of 40 hours, so they might be 10 hours spread out. So it takes about an average of a year for the field training program regardless. But to answer the question even more, so he's doing exceptionally well going through the training and picks up on stuff considerably well.
I think it's great.
Anything else? Everyone have a good rest of the evening.
Well, thank you.
On it, exit stage left.
So, thanks again for that, and, congratulations to Officer Livingston. Public Works, I think we all saw the report.
Yep.
Looks like they just continue to do good work down there. I don't think there's anything extraordinary to keep going with, which would move us on to council reports. There were no council reports turned in, so nothing to report on there. Mayor's report, I would just assume is probably part of the city administrator's report. Which brings us along to the consent agenda. We have items A, B, and C. So with council meeting minutes for 4/8 of 26, 5/13 of 26, and the resolution of the council declaring the election to receive state revenue, which we did move and pass in a 5/13/26 meeting. We have a motion for the consent agenda.
To approve the consent agenda as it's
I second.
And a vote.
And I.
ASCII.
Aaron, I.
Corrigan, aye. And a hand from Counselor Featherston, so unanimously we have moved along with the consent agenda. Unfinished business is to consider R 2026-852, a resolution by the City Council of Yamhill, Oregon, adopting the 2026-27 fiscal year budget and appropriating monies for operation and levying a property tax. Before we get into discussion on that, the adoption of a budget, state law calls for us to declare actual or potential conflicts of interest. I will be declaring an actual conflict of interest as my wife is the finance manager, and the fact that she receives a paycheck does affect my personal finances. However, Oregon ORS 244.1202BC provides that local officials who have an actual conflict of interest can still vote on budget. So I will be voting on the budget tonight. All that to say, do we have a motion to consider the budget and its adoption?
I make a motion to consider. Oh, wait, sorry.
It's right here.
We're doing just this one.
Yeah.
If this is separate, then,
No, that's just the dates.
oh, okay, I make a motion to consider our approve 2026-852, a resolution by the City Council of Yamhill, Oregon, adopting the 2026-27 fiscal year budget, appropriating monies for operation and levying the property tax.
And do we have a second?
I second the motion.
And a vote, please.
And I.
ASCII.
Aaron, I.
Corrigan, aye. Featherston, is that still a hand up from last time, or is that a brand new hand? Brand new hand, then we pass our budget unanimously. Well, it was fantastic. There was a lot of good work on that budget. It went very smoothly. And I appreciate everybody that took part. And our budget chair is here. Mr. Davis, thank you for your assistance there.
Yes, it did go very well.
Moving on to new business, we would consider referring to draft historic preservation ordinance to the planning commission for public hearing. What happened? Yes, I know, was hoping that that was not just me because I was,
Oh, I thought it was hearing and memo.
But yeah, just take the and out. That works.
fantastic. So we're gonna consider referring to draft historic preservation ordinance to the planning commission for public hearing. So we would like to entertain a motion.
Can we talk about it for a minute?
After we get a motion,
I make a
Little discussion.
motion to approve referring to draft historic preservation ordinance to planning commission for public hearing.
fantastic. We have a second?
I second.
And any discussion that we'd like to have?
So going through that, the criteria is what concerns me for the committee that does that. I mean, the background that you have to have and the amount of people that you have to have and the amount of time that these people that are going to be non-paid that are going to have to go through all of this. I'm concerned that it's even going to happen because of the architectural background, the historical background, and that's 5 people that you have to have for that, not necessarily all of them within the city, but if you find people outside of the city, however far that is, are they going to want to spend the time, because it's free of charge, it's volunteer, to go through what they're going to have to go through to be on this committee? I mean, can you imagine somebody that has a background in architecture, historical architecture, spending however many hours free of charge
Just
to be on a committee?
for the interest of saving time, and sorry to interrupt, it
That's
does
okay.
not qualify it as just under one possibility. So whether that's a state level or a federal level, or if it was just a city level. So those are things that the planning, if we were to approve it,
Right?
the planning department would have the idea to, or the ability to come back to us with a recommendation saying, we recommend that you do it at this level because of these concerns or lack of people to be able to take care of it. So to move to the highest level at the federal level, to have a historic district and all that kind of thing with all the regulations that go with it, we may not be able to do that, but that's the purpose for the planning commission. We're just, they're asking to not spend a bunch of time on it if we have no interest in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just, like I say, I read through it and I thought, oh my God, really? So, okay, that was my question. That was my concern.
It could come back that it's just at a very low level and it becomes wrapped into our downtown design standards.
Okay,
I mean, that's one option for that, I would imagine.
okay.
Is there any other question, comment, or concerns? We have a motion in a second already knows about.
What?
You go ahead. You go first.
To vote first?
Mhm.
Oh geez, ask yeah.
Can't die.
Karen, I,
Horgan, aye. And a hand from Featherston passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody, on that.
so I have another question real quick.
Okay,
On the hearing, because I'm on council,
yeah,
it would not be beneficial for me to go to the hearing and make any comments. Is that correct?
it would probably be in poor taste because you would look like you were maybe influencing another committee.
Okay, okay,
So the beauty of that is that you have the ability to sort of, lobby for support through council as that's coming back.
Yeah.
Through a discussion period,
Right, right.
as you are very capable of doing, I have noticed. If that does not come back as something that you find to be, possible or affordable for the city, that would be the time that should
And I
probably
would
happen.
definitely do that.
Yeah. Any more comments or concerns on that new business? Moving along. Information announcements for the good of the order. City caucus is at Beulah Park this Friday, June 12th at 6 p.m. Council Perrin will be attending as she intends to run for office again.
Yep.
I plan to be there as well for similar reasons. I would hope that we can count on the rest of the counselors to be there in support of our
Endeavors.
and please, anybody else that would have the time or the inclination to at least come down and see how the caucus, which acts as our primary, but in person and live in front of everybody, how that operates. Again, 6 p.m. Friday, June 12th. City offices will be closed on July 3rd in observance of Independence Day. I'm going to jump forward to the next council meeting is July 15th at 6:30 p.m. So that's 1 week after the normal amount of time. And then we have just one last thing on water conservation tips, regulations being available on the website. They are located.
You just go, this is the homepage of our website. And if you just scroll down to our announcements, right here, it says water conservation tips and regulations. If you click on that. It's gonna let me do it. Ta-da. Saving water inside the home, saving water outside the home, saving water, gives you tips on how to. These are all brought from the state of Oregon. Gonna take a little, I don't know if it's gonna pull it up.
Does it show, because I've not looked on that, does it show our? It does.
Our water
The
conservation
levels,
regulations.
the levels.
It sure does. Takes us straight to our municipal code, so you can read through those. Mr. Davis, before you have your meeting, these are what you're wanting to review. And then I can show you where that master plan that you're looking for, Public Works. And then you scroll down, Water System Master Plan.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Appreciate that. All right, so for everybody's information, that is where that is located. If you do have other questions or comments or concerns, our lovely city reporter would be loving to take that phone call Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
That probably the rest of June.
Except for the rest of June because she's gonna be out of town, so we will miss you and thank you for all that you do and all of your help. Unless anybody has anything else for tonight, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we are done.